How can anyone build generational wealth through real estate if no one can afford houses anymore? I've been thinking about this a lot lately. I grew up moving from one rented house to another. My parents didn't act when the market was good, they prioritized other things, and now I don't think I can afford to get one either. How can people recommend real estate as an investment when it seems like no one can afford it? I see articles and videos talking about buying multiple properties, and I'm still trying to get one. My feelings keep swinging between waiting for the right market, right loan, right house, and just diving right in. Screw the consequences. Time should make up for it, right? I guess I'm just feeling frustrated. I don't want to look back at my 30s kicking myself for not making it happen, because I just know things will become more expensive. But at the same time, I don't know if I can. How did you make real estate investing possible for you? Real estate isn't the only way to build generational wealth. Consistent investing in index funds can do the same. Check out the Our Personal Finance Wiki. Buy in a dicey neighborhood and be part of the change you want. Most all the money I have made in RE so far has been just this. There is no one way to invest in real estate. I know a couple who started by buying a house, living in it, and renovating it at the same time. After a couple of years, they sold it for a tidy profit, then moved on to their next fixer-upper. They only owned one property at a time and made renovations they got to enjoy. This sounds like it's a route you can take. It is absolutely more. It's difficult to get your foot in the door than it has been for previous generations. I believe it's going to end up being harder for the next generation. It's always been true that the initiator has to take more risk and make more sacrifice to get it into motion. So if this is your goal, finding a good place to do it and good people to help take advantage of whatever opportunities there may be are solid first steps. It's not gonna be a walk in the park, though, and I wish I could wave a magic wand and fix it. Get a good job, save, buy. That's all there is to it. A relatively high income is basically a requirement to invest in anything, especially real estate. I'll tell you how I make it happen. I sacrifice. I'm 36. The last 10 years my wife and I have lived in a tiny row home. My rental units are nicer than where we live. We save about 30-40 of our take home because we don't buy anything fancy and live simple. Been doing that for 10 years. We make decent money but nothing crazy. Living like this has allowed us to invest. We have friends buying nice suburban homes, driving Teslas, Euro trips, etc. They don't tend to invest. I don't know why people keep saying no one can afford houses anymore while people keep bidding up the price of any house available. Clearly many people can afford them and more. You get creative. Buy a duplex. Live in one side, rent out the other. Or buy a house with a basement and rent the basement out, or you build an accessory dwelling unit that can be rented out. I've lived with extended family in my own house for the better part of my 20s last 10 years, and it's helped me keep my housing costs and other expenses down and have a high savings rate, even though last year was the only year I've made above $50,000 a year. You can't afford to buy a house doesn't mean other can't. Several buyers are first-time home buyer with the intent to live there forever and pass it on to their kids. No one can afford? There's 10 people making offers for every house. People say this, but IDK. I'm 27. I bought my house a year and a half back when rates were at 3. And I put 5 down on $500K. It wasn't like crazy expensive. People just have this weird belief that they need to save up 20 for a down payment, which is just objectively not true. Who says that no one can afford houses anymore? Clearly people can afford them if there's no inventory. No one can afford houses? You mean those no ones that are offering 10 bids per house? There's no such thing as a perfect market. If you have the credit score for it, I say try looking now. Sometimes moving in early really is the best solution. Who is no one? I can afford a house because I lived simply and saved. I know some people can't do it, but living with parents was how I was able to eventually own my own home. The real estate guys have a saying that always sticks in my mind. Don't wait to buy real estate. Buy real estate and wait. Good advice. First comes FOMO, then comes HODL, then comes liquidation. Start small like a condo, work your way up. Intergenerational wealth. Also, move to Nebraska or Southern Illinois. Houses there are still affordable. Prioritize your goal and work toward that. People may not afford a house if getting a new car every 3 years is more important. Look and move 30 to 40 minutes away. As long as everyone wants to continue wanting to live in the same square mile, everyone is contributing to the problem. This notion that no one can afford houses anymore is simply not true. Sales data shows otherwise. Once you get one house, it's easier to get multiple houses. No one can afford houses. Since they're getting bought, I dunno if that's accurate. I think you get the theme from reading other folks' replies and comments. Sacrifice. Main question is, are you willing to sacrifice and delay gratification to achieve your financial goals? If so, how long, and do you have the will to do it? No one can provide that answer besides you. Good luck. It seems like no one can afford it. That is essentially a myth. People earning minimum wage buy houses. Essentially anyone with a job can buy some house. It may not be in HCOL areas or a huge house, but in much of the country it is possible to buy a house on a modest income. So figure out what is really important to you. Do you prefer to be in a particular area, or would you rather have an easier time buying a house? That's the point. You're not supposed to own anything anymore. You'll own nothing and like it. The American dream. What makes you think no one can afford houses anymore? Plenty of buyers that are not investors. As an immigrant, I can tell you I know of no immigrants in my community who are homeless or who didn't end up buying a home in less than 10 years from coming here. Even those with virtually no schooling and bad English skills. People can afford houses. People lack discipline. It's not easy, but it's doable. Start with a multi-family with a friend. Pool savings. It's doable. It takes discipline. Maybe second jobs. Curbing spending. Live there for a period of time on a low down payment FHA loan. Once the required residency period is gone, refinance it to a conventional and go get another low down payment FHA loan and repeat the process. It's a generational wealth process, not a get rich quick one. I worked 2 jobs for the last 4 years. Almost 80 hours a week. Bought my first house in 2021. Turned into a duplex and now looking for my second rental. You can do it. The first 100K is the hardest. Fully dedicate yourself to the cause. If I had to start over, I'd be house hacking. Finance a multi-unit building as your primary residence and rent out the other units to subsidize your mortgage. When you save up enough to buy another house, you will already have a multi-unit rental. You could also buy a more affordable home and rent a room to a friend. There's always a way. You can afford a house. It just might not be where you want it be. There are still plenty of areas with decent income to mortgage ratios. They just don't happen to be in Phoenix or NYC.